Today, guys, I'm going to do my best to drive this into your head that the federal government, namely Congress or any other instrument of the federal government, they are not allowed to mess around with your firearms. They cannot pass gun laws. A lot of people don't grasp that the Constitution and the Bill of Rights were not written to give rights to the citizens of our then new nation, but was instead written to tightly constrain the federal government. Founders had just won a long, brutal war, and they didn't know how much power to give the federal government, So, the Bill of Rights was added to the Constitution under the concerns of the anti-federalists and was meant to be 10 strong chains binding down the then puny federal government to prevent future abuses. The Second Amendment of the Bill of Rights was written by founding fathers who understood the right to bear arms as a natural human right that the Creator bestowed upon each and every human being. How can there be any other right, if not the right to defend your life is not the most paramount right of them all? So, what they did, they ratified that basic human right to bear arms within the Second Amendment. Congress is barred from sticking their noses into it. It was imperative that to have the citizens both well-armed and well-trained with military-grade arms so that we'd have the survival of this young republic, not just against foreign nations and native tribes, but also against the ever-hungry, ever-corrupting desire of nations and states to grow and seize power for themselves, turning citizens into subjects and subjects into slaves. The Second Amendment meant the federal government in Washington had no power to constrain or regulate arms. It was unquestioned. It was an unquestioned reality for the first 143 years of the Republic. And then the Democrats in the 1930s decided that the Constitution and the Bill of Rights no longer mattered. We had socialists back then. So, to enslave the states, the federal government passed the National Firearm Act of 1934. You getting this now? Okay. Quite simply, though, people, it says that precisely the founders meant when they wrote that the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed upon by the federal government. Quite simply, the Congress and the President lacked the constitutional authority to pass any gun laws. Not a single one. Now, I'm going to show you this stuff, people, because I want you to know. I want you to know where your rights are, where their unconstitutional laws are coming from, so on and so forth. As soon as I get this thing straightened up one way or another. Now this is, I saved this some time ago, from the Saturday Evening Post, 1776. Hear ye, hear ye. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. And that's what you have, folks. That's what you have. Now, I'm going to get too far ahead of myself here. This isn't... There we go. I got this marked. Just for your reference here. This is the Second Amendment Primer. $1996. Now we're going to get to something here. I better zoom this because I want you people to read this, because I'm not going to go over and over and over this every time I make a video. The evidence is overwhelmingly in favor of the interpretation that the drafters of the Second Amendment deliberately intended with the specific words that they chose, and with the specific specific way that they chose to organize those words into long sentences to recognize the existence of both a collective and an individual right of the American citizen to keep and bear arms. I'll get down here. You don't have to be a lawyer to figure this out, but I'm going to say this again. The Second Amendment to the United States Constitution ratifies and preserves for every citizen the right to keep and bear arms, and moreover, that Congress or any other instrumentality of the federal government is constitutionally barred from infringing that right. Now, I'll show you something here. The American Constitution is not sovereign, but the American Congress is not sovereign. Our Constitution is. It is quite unconstitutional to legislate any kind of a right out of existence. They can't do that. Okay. The framers of the Constitution were born and brought up in the atmosphere of the common law, and they thought and spoke of its vocabulary. They were familiar with other forms of government, recent and ancient, but indicated that their discussions earnestly study and consider of many of them, but when they came down to it, their conclusions into the form of a fundamental law in a compact draft, they expressed themselves in the terms of the common law with confidence that they would be shortly and easily understood. The language of the Constitution cannot be interpreted safely except by reference to the common law and to the British institutions as they were then, and then when this instrument was framed and adopted. Thomas Jefferson, by no means an imprecise thinker, was well aware of this consideration, and he commented how the Constitution should properly be read. In every question of the construction, let us carry ourselves back to the time when the Constitution was adopted, recollect the spirit manifested in the debates, and instead of trying what meaning can be squeezed out of the text or invented against it, confirm to the probable one which was when it was passed. We're going to get to another thing here. This is Carl Miller. Get back here. He served in Nam. We'll get to something here in just a second because I want you to know. First, we're going to get to this thing here. If you don't know your rights, you don't have any rights. Now, there was consideration the citizens considered how they were to be governed, and government promised that they would be governed by a constitution. Then there was an agreement. Citizens agreed that if the government promised that they would be governed by the Constitution, they would be allowed the Constitution to go into force. What we have here is a rare situation in force. It is very rare when you find a party, the first party, which is the congressmen and officers of the government, who are also parties as the second part as representatives of we the people of the republic. When they signed as officers of the government, agreeing to the Constitution, and simultaneously as officers and representatives of the people in a republican form of government, when they signed that document, that constitute an ironclad contract in writing, enforceable in the court of law, pursuant to the statutes of fraud. If you read something in the Constitution, and you have a good reason to believe it's the way it is, they should honor that, and they should honor in favor of you the clearly intended and express designated beneficiary. First thing to understand is Article 6, Paragraph 2 of the Constitution. It's known as the Supremacy Clause in the Constitution. What it really says is this Constitution, the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and treaties made, which shall be under the authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land. Every judge and every state will be bound thereby. Anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary are notwithstanding in law. If you have a problem here, it says one of the leading cases in history, the Marbury versus Madison, the opinion of the court was anything in conflict with the Constitution is null and void of law. Clearly, a secondary law cannot come in conflict with a supreme law. It would bear no power to enforce. It would bear no obligation to obey. This argument, people, will nullify the Brady Bill and all the other gun bills that they've passed. We're going to get to something else here before I run out of time. Section 8, this is a power that the Congress does have. And then you get down here to Article 9 of the, Article 1, Section 9, what Congress is not allowed to do. Okay? They can pass no bill of attainder or ex post facto law shall be passed. Well, what did they do? Do you know what ex post facto means, or bill of attainder? Ex post facto means they can't make something retroactive because that makes it in conflict with the Constitution. But they did. Your gun bills are that way. Your Domestic Violence Act that they passed in 96 or 97, it automatically put everybody in jeopardy all the way back to Adam and Eve. They say, well, no ex post facto. Bull crap. You can't pass a law after a fact and then turn a regular citizen into a different class of citizen. It's like the people who are felons and they've served their time. I'm sorry, once they've served their time and that should be wiped clean, and they are now citizens of the United States. The people, read your Constitution. For God's sake, it's right there, right in front of you. And please don't come to my channel. If you don't have a Constitution, get out there and buy one. I only cater to Americans. Thanks for watching.